sure we're alive on the gram. Let's see how this is looking on the gram. Oh, looks good on the gram. Gonna go live there. Oh, this is so exciting. I'm so glad that this is like finally working. I spent so long last year trying to finagle because audio is not my pocket, but we here with it now.
But
All
it's gonna
right,
be your pocket.
it's about to be. We working on it. We working on it. Media and entertainment for the masses. Hold on, let me get this mic right. Yo, I had Grandpa Joe tapped in on Wednesday on Facebook with Black Dave. Like he texted me after and he was like, "Hey, I saw you on Facebook. Great job. That was." And he was like into the conversation. Multi generational show right here, y'all. All right, let's get into it. I'm gonna get into this intro and then we're just gonna get right into the nitty gritty here. What is good, y'all? Welcome to the Culture Shift with Raven50mm, where we are reimagining radio and podcasting by merging the two together for immaculate vibes while leveraging blockchain and Web3 tools to experiment with monetization and distribution methods. Brought to you by the Legacy Portrait Project and the 50mm Collective. The 50mm Collective is a community of BIPOC, trans, and queer digital artists and allies that work together as we pioneer Web3 and NFTs. The 50mm Collective has a YouTube channel with tutorials and helpful info on how to get a NFT wallet set up and get started with archiving your artwork on the blockchain. The Legacy Portrait Project is a mission driven endeavor aimed at empowering BIPOC, trans, and queer individuals. In a world often marked by adversity, the Legacy Portrait Project strives to create a haven for storytelling, utilizing visionary tools like future framing, visualization, and AR technology to uplift marginalized voices. Legacy portraits are still photographs that come to life with video narration, sharing the subject's story from their perspective. The Legacy Portrait Project's mission goes beyond capturing moments in time. It's about fostering human connection, advancing social change, driving socioeconomic empowerment, and ensuring the legacy of each subject is forever memorialized on the blockchain. Right now, the Legacy Portrait Project is running a raffle for 3 people to win $1,000 off their first Legacy Portrait. You can sign up for that at legacyportraitproject.com/contact. All right, y'all. First of all, happy Friday. It is a great day to have a great day. And it's a special day because we got Natalie Crue with us today. Natalie is strategically leveraging art and culture for global social impact. Natalie is a beacon of hope in the Web3 space for people of culture. She architects transformative projects like the Metaverse Musical Festival and co-produces Huellas Festival nested in southern Spain. Natalie spearheads impactful events, creating placemaking initiatives and collaborative projects across the globe and digitally. Notably, she co-produced the Global Empowerment and Cultural Summit and served as social producer on Comedy Gives Back Laugh Aid, featuring Adam Sandler, Bob Saget, and a laundry list of prominent comedians. Foreseeing the potential of Web3, Natalie launched Web3 Uncut in 2022. This dynamic tech lab fosters initiative, microfunding, and incubation experiments, empowering artists, creators, and the global creator economy. A tenacious leader with a keen eye for opportunity, Natalie is a driving force in the cultural and technological landscapes. Natalie Crue, thank you so much for being with us here on Culture Shift. How you living? How you feeling? What is good?
I am so happy to be here with you. I'm in a good space today. I ain't cussed nobody out today, so we're good.
Amen. Amen. Amen to that. Yeah, right. We just getting started, so
Yeah. We still got 20 million hours for us today.
yeah, don't try it. Natalie ain't the one, y'all. Just let me just some of y'all might
Let's
know
get this
Nat
out of the
not
way.
yeah, let me just preface. Some of y'all might not know Natalie like that, so that's cool. I'm gonna let you know she ain't the one. So she is the one, but she not the one. You know what I'm saying? All right, Natalie, let's just get right into it. First question here: what is your origin story for getting started here in Web3? Like, what brought you here? What landed you here? Let's get into it.
so so two things. I always tell people that I have kind of I would say three eras in crypto. And I would say like 2013. I had known this guy from New York City. I lived there for several years, and he owed me hella money. And I'm like, bro, like it's been like a long time since you owed me money, and like this is ridiculous. It was like crazy Jamaican dude, super street. That's a long story for another day. But he had owed me money, and I had done him a favor, and so I'm like, bro, like you got to cop up now. And he was like, man, all I got is Bitcoin. I'm just like, bro, I'm like, and I knew about Bitcoin from because I'd always been involved in like kind of the underground, the underbelly of like the internet and kind of these like subcultures. And so I knew about Bitcoin, I knew about alternative currencies. I'm like, bro, I need cash. A girl got to pay the rent. He was like, I'm just gonna give you half cash. I'm gonna give you some Bitcoin. It's not really worth anything right now, but I'm gonna give it to you. And I'm just like, I was so pissed off. And it's not that I didn't want the Bitcoin. I just really wanted the cash. And plus, I was hungry that day. I can specifically remember that I was super hungry that day. And so he gave me some Bitcoin on this, and it wasn't like now, like where you just send somebody like to your MetaMask or like your wallet. He gave me like these pieces of paper. I was so mad, and so I held on to those pieces of paper. Story down the road. 2018-17, I had known these guys, DJ Lethal Skills and Van Digital, aka Vandal, and they're in Malaysia propping up the hip hop scene there. And I've known them for like many, many years. The international hip hop scene is super small, and they were involved in this early decentralized social media platform called Steam It, and they were also running something called Hip Hop on the Blockchain. And I was watching them on Facebook. No promo to you, Zuckerberg. Um, but they were doing some really cool stuff. I'm like, what are y'all doing over there? And they're basically like, oh, come check out this hip hop on the blockchain thing and Steam It. And I got on Steam It, and I never left Steam It until Justin Sun rugged us. Also, another story for another day. And so they had different communities and cool cultural things happening, and people were sending each other Bitcoin. And it was a really wild time. And so that was kind of my second era where I actually started to get really invested in kind of the idea of building community on the blockchain, and also the idea of like porting cultural initiatives and projects and like really propping up artists on the blockchain. I started to see the opportunity very early on. And so, and they modeled exactly what that meant, and they modeled that with value. And I was like, damn, this is interesting as hell. I was like, I gotta be a part of this thing. And during those days, it was definitely different than it is now. And then my third era was, and I'll make this quick, is that I was on Clubhouse, and there are people talking about crypto. And obviously, I was already knee deep in crypto by now. And I was like, what are y'all talking about? They're like misinforming people. They wouldn't let people on stage. They wouldn't let anybody answer questions. Clubhouse was a very weird place from the beginning. And so and there was a bunch of VCs talking about Bitcoin. I'm like, y'all absolutely 9,000% do not know what you're talking about. And then I happened to meet a bunch of ragtag degenerates, and somehow we made NFTs.tips. Black Dave and Cas Vegas and the homie Bitbuzz and Alan Henna and Pepe Cash Millionaire and Joseph aka Quantum. All these people came together, and we just ran rooms, which I will never do again, by the way, 24/7. We built up niches like photography and film, and it was just a beautiful time till it wasn't. And so, but I value the time that I spent with Black Dave and Kaz and like all these people and the kind of relationships we built. And so that was like my third era, and probably the most epic era. And so yeah, we championed a lot of artists to come into the space through that. So yeah, long story short, but not really.
No, thank you for sharing that. And yo, who was I don't one of the somebody I was talking to those clubhouse days, probably Black Dave, to be honest. Back in the day when we would spend like when those rooms would go like 12 hours, fam. I was
12 hours. I'll be like, oh, why am I up for the third day?
yo, like, and I was like, hey, God bless those folks who was hosting those rooms, because like y'all really were doing the Lord's work with just not only like educating creators and artists on like the tech side of things, but also just cultivating a space in which we were able to come and share our story and feel comfortable enough to pull up and like share who we were
Yeah.
and who like the artwork that we make and things. And I feel like for a lot of artists that was like the first time somebody asked, what's your story? And we were able
Mm-hmm.
to like, oh, like for me, I was like, oh shit, what is, I got to think about that kind of for a second. And
Mm-hmm.
like, work on that. But no, just hey, God bless y'all for hosting those spaces for real, because that shifted the trajectory for a lot of artists' careers and helped propel like us really into this Web3, because this is, once you're in it, you in it. And so like
Hmm.
you gotta have your community of folks, of people to like that you trust, that you can lean on. And to go into the next question, we talk a lot about community in the Web3 space, in the NFT space. I feel like that word in particular kind of gets bastardized a little bit,
Hmm.
just like thrown out there. And I'm curious, for somebody who has played such an impactful role in community, in for real community building, like bringing people together for real, for real. How do you define community? And and well, we'll start with how do you define community?
I think everybody has their own definition of community, but I don't start there. For me, community, what that I always start with, what can community provide for people? Community in its pure essence, in my opinion. And a lot of people, let me just backtrack. A lot of people do bastardize community. A lot of people do extract by trying to build these like manufactured communities, whether it's big brands or like people in Web3, and it makes me sick. How, but to like kind of move forward, my idea of community is a place that fosters kind of how do we like gather, how do we convene with each other, how do we build community, and what does it mean to like galvanize around the thing or each other. And so the communities that I love and the communities that I've built over the last like 15, 20 years, whether it's in culture like Web3 or like music, have always like fostered belonging. And so for me, that's always been like the key component. How do we give space to people to come and bring themselves, like whether it's like your multidisciplinary self or your three selves or like whatever that looks like for you. How do you come into a space and you're able to like be yourself? Because when you're yourself and you don't feel pressure to like perform, and that's the thing that I loved about Clubhouse. We're like, I don't care if you come from like Podunk, like Michigan. Shout out to Michigan. I don't care if you come from Iowa or like you're a photographer or you build kind of like brick houses. Like, come and be yourself and like tell your story from that perspective. And I think collectors or people will kind of, at least the ones that hold their weight in this space, will kind of understand like where you come from and hopefully like attach themselves to your story and like begin to like follow you and your journey. And so for me, fostering belonging has always been like a key component, and also being yourself. I've been in so many spaces or quote unquote communities where you can't be that and everybody's performing, and it's kind of it drags you down in so many ways. And I think ultimately I just want to bring, if nothing else, like those two things are what community is, and you can kind of like build from there. What are your collective values, what are your individual values, and how do we share space together, and we can build whatever community looks like to y'all from there. So yeah.
Beautifully said. I like that answer a lot. Um, you do a lot in the space, and you work on
Too much.
and you work on various projects. I'm curious on what your process is like for selecting projects and initiatives to work with.
I always lead with values. And so and I've been, a lot of people that know me, they've seen me be in spaces and I'm like smoking people out. I'm like, are you in alignment with the artists that like I rock with in the space? Are you in alignment with the values of like the blockchain? And so a lot of people are not. And so I'm pretty hefty, especially on the latter thing. Are you about decentralization? Whatever that looks like for you, great. But do you at least believe, sorry, my cat's jumped on the window. Do you believe in some semblance of that? Do you believe in equity, like how we share space together, how we share and redistribute power? Um, like kind of what is your perspective on your existence here, and like how do you kind of step back if you're taking up too much space? And so I always, a lot of people are, when they look at the table, and by the table I mean like when we're negotiating kind of these projects with people, I'm always thinking about those things versus like the money. Like we'll get to the money in a second, but like the values is important because I've been in spaces where people are like, I believe in this, I believe in that, and then are hella extractive, or they want to sell you out or try to like bulldoze their way in, or like do kind of things that I don't align with. And so alignment is so key for me to even kind of think about working with a project. And I advise a bunch of projects in the space, and a lot of them, alignment has always been like, kind of the key thing for me. So yeah,
That
no
is
fuckboys in 2024.
nah, we let over and done with that those
So,
shenanigans. Speaking on values, can you break or go through kind of like maybe four of what your core values are, and while you're working through this process? So
mm,
um, just so to have some like insight for other creatives and artists to kind of know what to look for, and I think too like your values come within they're your core
yeah,
values,
yeah,
but to a
yeah.
certain extent, providing some insight on like what you're looking for and what those are.
Um, my core value, like the first one is absolutely like integrity, and like under that transparency. Are you honest? Because I'm pretty like blunt. Most people, I used to get in trouble all the time as a kid for doing so. And so I always ask people like, is this person coming to the table with integrity? Do they actually like believe in that? And I don't ask people that. Like I simply observe and like watch you and how you move. Um, are you extractive? Um, for me, like I believe whatever table that I exist at, I always try to bring value. Not try, I do bring value to the table, and I expect the other party to do the same. And so whether that's a share in like energy, or how we kind of the resource we bring to the table, or the people we bring to the table, what does it actually look like to kind of collaborate? Collaboration is also like a huge it's maybe it's not tangible, but collaboration and how we share space together is something I ultimately like. Anything that I work on, especially like this year and like moving forward, I want to make sure that I'm collaborating with people and not just be like, you do this, you do that. Cause I could be hella alpha and like I could boss you around like all day. But I don't, I want to share energy at the table with people and not have to like bring mad labor on my back or you. And so, like, what are you actually bringing to the space? And the other thing is like I value communication. I always tell people I keep it funky. And so, and that's how I roll. And like how we negotiate the levels of that is cool. But like I'm always gonna keep it funky and keep it 100 at all times. And so I value open, honest communication. And that hasn't always been the case for like people I work with in the space. And so um I can go on and on and on with like all these things that I value, but like if those things are in place, like we can move forward and we can negotiate like what the rest looks like. The last thing I would also say, I also value people that are hella open minded. I don't like transphobic, queerphobic, anti-black folks. I will not fuck with you. Period. I know I would probably get censored on the internet, but I just can't. In 2024 and any year, and I've been this since a kid. I don't condone any of that. I also need people to stand on their values, stand on businesses that everybody's saying on the internet, and that it's not negotiable. And so like I value people that are open-minded and come to the table with that. And so yeah, because my people gonna come, you're gonna have to deal with them.
Boom, drops mic. Truly, truly though, um thank you for sharing that insight and that
Mm.
perspective. I think that's really important. And especially as artists, right? Like I feel like there's different um reasons as to why everybody isn't involved in Web3, but as artists, we're sensitive. We're sensitive about our shit, like we really got to
Always.
yeah, we got to be in alignment with you cuz you feel it. That's the thing is like 2022 is a little bit out of alignment for me, and I
Yeah.
could you feel it. Um
Ye Yeah, I'm very like, I have, like, a strong energy read on just people, place, and things, and I've always, again, like, been that way. And so I I was in a meeting yesterday, and this I could feel it. I'm just like, and I just sort of asked them, like, the thing that was like, kind of yanking at me, and they confirmed it. And I was like, "I appreciate your time, gotta go." And so if I feel that kind of it's like ringing a towel. Like when I feel that, like I have to go because I know it's kind of speaking to me in terms of like your energy, and I can ask you all the questions I want. But that type of observation, when you kind of know yourself and you get deep into like um kind of your spiritual space and deep into like who you are and like getting to know yourself, you start to kind of feel people out a little bit more clearly and start to think with clarity. And so, and then you're able to read people more like vividly. And so I get that quite often. And I just got to speak on it. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you for speaking on it. Oh, kick the mic. That's not the right cable to be kicking. Oh my goodness, that was like, whoo. We're good though. Still got audio levels. Um, um. Well, to kind of switch gears a little bit
Yeah.
from that, what is something that you're currently excited about, whether it be in the we'll start with within Web3 and then we'll go to on a personal level what you're excited about.
I'll keep it funky. Web3, especially for the last year, has not gotten me very excited. I do love Black Dave's token chat. I ain't gonna lie. And so that feels like home most of the time. But I am kind of excited about public goods funding, not the current slate of platforms or kind of the way people are thinking about it. But I have been convening with a few people around what does it look like to build more equitable public good funding in Web3. How do we actually kind of share resources? What does it look like to prop up artists for real and build like a micro economy, or I call a circular donut economy here? Because at the moment, this is not it. And so I'm very excited about the people that I'm kind of galvanizing around to build kind of these kind of hyperstructures as they call them. And so but I'm not really excited. I know it sounds strange for somebody who's been here for a long time. I'm not really excited about what's happening kind of in Web3 and kind of the push to like just I think Black Dave was talking about the in his chat, the 90 DC CC FFF, whatever they call it, clothing drop, and I was like, is this what we're really putting out in Web3? And so I think ultimately, like, we really have to challenge ourselves and really think about what we actually want here. And so I'm not going to wait for people to kind of radically imagine that. I'm just going to do what I do and put out my own stuff. And so I was just kind of disappointed in kind of the current slate of things that are dropping around here. And so, um, yeah, not excited about a lot around here.
Hey, that is
So,
fair.
yeah.
What are some to kind of go piggyback off of that? Like, what are some changes that I don't know if I want to ask like changes you want to see or like what are some? I think the better question is like what are what are actions that need to be taken to see the change that like we all got in Web3 thinking it
Mm.
was. Like I feel like we all came in here thinking, "Oh, this is the digital revolution. We're about to shake up the world. We're going to make all this positive impact." And like um but it kind of starts to feel like it's the same game being played but with just different people and then like
Yeah.
maybe you might get you know I don't know can you I feel like can you
Yeah.
speak to it a little bit yeah
Yeah,
help me out
I
here
know where we're going. The shifts that I would like to see, personally, I would love for people to stop getting drunk off this idea of like mass adoption. It's not real. And these people are the same players. Like, let's keep it funky. When we look at the market makers, I'm not talking about the influencers. I'm not talking about kind of the people who have like the loudest mouths in crypto or like the biggest like bags on these Twitter stages. I'm talking about the market makers. They some of them are the same people that come from like Web 2. Some of these are the same people that are making markets in Web 2. And some of these people are the market makers or the industry kind of valves to turn things off and decide who gets platformed and who doesn't. They're the same people for the most part, and the people that aren't the same people live and exist with those people. And so, from my perspective, and so I ultimately need us to like stop getting drunk off the Kool-Aid and really kind of see what has happened in Web3 and how much we've deviated. And I'm talking about the surface level. I still exist in kind of the underbelly of like crypto with like a lot of the Bitcoin cats and knee deep in stacks. And so, which is the L2 of Bitcoin. And so they still think the same way. It's like, don't get it twisted. But the surface level of crypto, especially like music NFTs and like NFTs in general, like we're hella drunk off the Kool-Aid. Like we have to think about the next five, not tomorrow, but the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what is the actual end game of this space? And if it's not decentralization, if it's not sharing and being equitable and redistributing wealth, if it's not putting money in the pockets and stop making people going through hoops that actually need it, while you're giving money to these same market makers with no kind of like fluff or obstacles in the way, we have Houston, we have a problem. And so I want to see us really galvanize around these more radical ideas that we kind of this into we're birthed into. Otherwise we won't be here. Like crypto and all that will be here, but we won't be here as like this quote unquote community that exists here. I'd also like to see people stop waiting for somebody to save them or waiting for this like crypto savior. We got to get out there and get it and put out those proposals and kind of knock some of these doors down and bulldoze these obstacles. And if you want to put out a clothing line, if you want to build like a universal basic income thing or whatever, like we have to champion and galvanize around those things and build power, which I think is something that we don't talk about. How do we kind of collectively and get build power around some of these proposals and projects that we want to push forth and kind of start to just like bulldoze through these doors? Like we have to do that shit. Otherwise you're gonna wonder why some guy got $6.9 million in ApeCoin to build like an investment vehicle for like ApeCoin, and you can't even get like $1,000 proposal passed. And so how do we actually like build kind of do some power mapping and say, hey, like I want to build X, Y, and Z. How do we build some shit around that? Because we talk about people that don't like, oh, we're not celebrating Black History Month. Most of these people are not Black at these damn platforms, y'all. Most of these people are not Black at these protocols or chains. And those of us that are Black, we literally are kicking in doors all damn day. And to some extent, it's, at least for me, like I continue to do the work, but it doesn't mean that I haven't dealt with some fuck shit. It doesn't mean that I don't deal with like, the kind of the agony of continuing to like do that labor. I'm going to continue to do it. Don't get it twisted. But I need more folks to jump on board. I need more folks to be like the Kianga Ellis. I need more folks to be like myself. I need more folks to be like the X, Y, and Z and start to like kick down these doors and start to redistribute these funds at some of these big DAOs or some of these protocols and chains. Otherwise, we're going to continue why they don't celebrate us on Black History Month and throw a Twitter space when they should be giving us 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 million to prop up this damn community to do the things we want to do instead of like, I don't want a Twitter space. Fuck you, your Black History Month Twitter space. I don't want a damn like party at NFT NYC. Like, give me $20 million so I can build a UBI program. Give me $40 million so I can like build up a cultural exchange project or to like fund Cas Vegas or whatever to build the things we actually need here. Fuck your Twitter space. That's how I feel. So
And just to be clear, Natalie is saying fuck y'all's Twitter Spaces, not this one, not
no, not this
not
one.
not our
Not my people.
not ours. So don't come back with me and say, well, Natalie Crue. No, okay, she talking
Y'all
about
know I
y'all.
live in Twitter spaces, but I don't want to be at your Black History Twitter space. That's not real to me.
No, for real. Like, cause guess what? We Black January and March and April and all the rest of the months of the year.
All the way to Kwanzaa.
Truly. Oh wow. You just where to go from that of what you all that you just said. Cause like, yo, you're oh man. Okay. Okay. Let me just get into the next question. Because yo, just gems, honestly, mic drop like nope, I'm just gonna get into the next question. Well, before I get into the next question, I gotta shout out the homies who pulled up here. What's good, Ed? Yo, it's so good to see you in here.
Hey,
Black
Ed.
Dave pulled up. We got Jared in here. What's good, Mel? I'm so happy that y'all have pulled up, showed love, hanging out in the Twitter Spaces. Appreciate y'all. Just gotta acknowledge them real quick. Oh, man, get some water. Got me charged up over here. So to continue on, so you're not too excited about what's going on in Web3, which understandably. Personally, well, actually, I want to talk about your artwork. I didn't know you was dipping and dabbling in the artwork. Like, you do so much, Natalie. Like, dog, you be out here. How do you have time to be creating artwork too? Like, I got it playing. If you're watching the live stream,
Mm.
on the left side of the screen, you can see Natalie's artwork cycling through. It's amazing. I love these collages. Can you speak a little bit more on your artistic side and your artistic
Yeah.
process? That was a very exciting. I was like, oh, Natalie, bit okay. Yeah, can you speak a little bit on that?
So I've always been like hyper creative, like not just like producing festivals or projects, but I've also like art has always been like a personal thing. I've worked in the art world and navigated that space for many, many years. And so, um, amongst other things, so being creative again, like has been a very personal practice for me. It's the one thing that's kept me like, on solid ground, so to speak. And so I typically do a lot of multimedia, multifaceted, wild collages. I also have been messing with AI for many, many years. And so I kind of depends on what I do some watercolor stuff too, but that's just like I'm bored watching Law and Order's episode 832, and so I'm just gonna do some watercolors real quick. And so and a lot of my work kind of traverses, especially like your own, like my work traverses kind of identity, kind of archival stuff. So I pull out a lot of archival stuff. A lot of my work kind of talks about my own familiar history, and a part of that is like grappling with kind of the ways in which just my father's family in particular was often like silenced or engaged in how to like deal with erasure amongst themselves and also in society about their own history. They basically grew up in dirt floor poverty, and um my father was actually like a sharecropper. People think slavery ended in like 18 whatever, like sharecropping. This is like the 70s. My dad was still like sharecropping for this family that like owned my family. And so that just that familiar history around that is something that I've been trying to wrap my head around. And so, and there's also kind of like a lot of family secrets and all the stuff that kind of rose up because of kind of that back end around them being like super poor and not having food to eat. And so I and they migrated to like California in the summer around the 70s to kind of escape that dirt floor poverty, only to be kind of wrecked by the quote unquote war on drugs, which was really a war on Black and Brown people and poor folks. And so I talk a lot about, and so my collages, people will look at them and they'll see like a slave shack and a cotton field with the white lady painting like this cotton field. That's kind of what the kind of collage most people like. And so, and I'm like, if you look very deeply into this like collage, you'll see like little stories. And I often describe kind of the background of all this stuff. And so, um, then I have work that's like more fantastical. I had a wild imagination as a kid. That's how I escaped my own chaos and like family dysfunction. And so I also do a lot of fantastical stuff with AI, and it's just kind of like an escape for me. And so, but I haven't had a lot of time in this space because I've been doing a lot of projects and kind of holding a lot of space and labor for those projects. And so I'm just kind of getting back to that at the moment. So yeah,
Awesome. Thank you for
that's
sharing
it.
that.
Oh
And
yeah.
you had mentioned cultural erasure and
Hmm.
um, things like that. I'm curious. Can you speak a little bit on your opinion on like um, using the blockchain for archival purposes and yeah, just like what you think, what your thoughts are on that.
My perspective on kind of this is this. I we've brought forth a lot of like consumer driven like use cases on the blockchain, but amongst like a few of us, we obviously talk about this a lot. Yeah, Sursu, yourself, and like other folks that are kind of like centering this conversation. However, the blockchain can be used to like store some of our stories on chain. The blockchain can be used to kind of create ways in which people can kind of transact and interact around that in ways that I don't think museums and these other cultural institutions, which kind of I just keep it funky, like whitewash and kind of sanitize like our stories and how we kind of perceive them, how we interact with them, how we kind of exist with those stories in these kind of very sterile spaces. And so, and that goes for like what I call the academic chitlin circuit too. And so I'm and so like I can talk about like hip hop archives and like a lot of kind of ephemera and archival works are stored at various like hip hop archives around the states. However, who has actual access to them and accessibility to these archives is something that we actually need to have a conversation about. I can't just go to Cornell. I mean, I probably could, but we can't just go to Cornell, Harvard, or at least other spaces and be like, let me go see X, Y, and Z. It's some of it's very like closed off and like it's not just going to the actual space, it's the actual people who are put into place to actually like harness and gather this ephemera and these things. Why are those things in those spaces? Why are we not putting on the blockchain where we can make it accessible, where we can allow people to kind of riff on those? Because hip hop has a long history of like sampling, hip hop has a long history of kind of open access and open sourcing. Why are we putting it into like this academic cave where people, most people can't even travel or traverse to or gather in? So I look at hip hop, I look at my own kind of cultural like background and looking at how we're pulling archives and how we make that accessible to people to kind of remix, to kind of play with, to kind of and that be a vehicle for people to kind of understand and wrap their head around our history, our collective history, our individual history. And so I don't think archives should be in a file cabinet. It can be on the blockchain where we can create the space to like play around that. And also preservation, provenance, all that other stuff, obviously. So that's how I feel.
I love it because I feel the same way. I'm like, we blockchain is like, I feel like right now the best way to archive history. And in addition, I like, cool, you want to put it in the institutions, et cetera, do that, whatever, but also put it on the blockchain, like, so that there is that accessibility factor to it. Because I'm trying to, I'm in Michigan. I'm trying to think. I mean, we got the Holland Museum, you know what I mean? But
Y'all got
like,
the museums. I would also say, no name, but I know y'all gonna be watching this episode, but there's a hip hop museum somewhere around New York City. Um, and they get to pick and choose who gets to tell their story. And a part of that is very problematic. A part of that is rooted in the academic chitlin circuit. A part of that's kind of rooted in rewriting like hip hop history to kind of center some folks who have given them a crazy amount of like access to these stories. Um, but there's so many threads to like hip hop history. There's so many threads to kind of how people galvanized around this culture. Um, but if we look at this landscape of academic history in regards to like hip hop, we've seen people kind of reduce those threads to like this one thread of history. And a part of that to say like, hey, I don't know if people know the Black Spades, but like you won't hear a lot of academics talk about the Black Spades, but you can't talk about hip hop without the Black Spades or gang culture or any of these things, which is hip hop is rooted in that. But we have a lot of academics in these archives completely engaging in the erasure of like that part of the history. And so the blockchain, we can say, hey, Grandmaster Flash or even international cats that I know that have put Apple Clapple, who's my homegirl, is the queen of hip hop and Latam, one of them at least. We say, hey, like you can put your history on the blockchain and tell your story. You don't have to wait for a museum to put your stuff up there. We can create exhibitions. We can create our own archives. What does it actually look like to build up these digital archives and these spaces in collaboration globally? Because these museums, these academics aren't doing that. They're picking and choosing who gets to be um, lauded or who gets to be celebrated and who does not. And it's very classist, very problematic. And anybody listening to this, y'all come from the academic chitlin circuit, you can run one. So I've had a long standing problem with that. So that's how I feel about archival stuff. So.
yo, Natalie in here cooking. I need to get some. Once I get some sound effects, I'm gonna be so annoying. I can't wait. I'm gonna be, yeah, I'm gonna be doing the air horn, the bomb drop. I'm gonna get a, yeah. It's gonna be fun. Um. Okay. We're cooking. Um. So I only have a couple more questions here. I could talk to you all
Cool.
day about this. This is like, oh, this is what I live for. I love it. Thank you again for your time and your energy with joining us today and just dropping these gems. Um, so we were talking a little bit about culture. We talked about it a little bit there, and
Hmm.
so I'm wondering, what does culture mean to you? How do you define culture?
So, once upon a time on the academic chitlin circuit, I, I'm kind of like a cross between a sociologist, anthropologist, but without the colonizing. And so I tend to think very sociologically around this idea of culture. Like culture is encompasses all of who we are, and first and foremost, I love to focus on kind of language. And language obviously is not just spoken, because when we there's kind of saying, if you take away somebody's language, you also kind of extract and take their culture. And so we've seen kind of the erasure and depletion of like languages across the globe, thousands of languages kind of erased from the face of the earth. And so, and also along with that went kind of cultures. And so I'm always thinking about, how do we actually preserve our mother tongues, and not just the spoken language, but also like our creative language, our creative practices, our language around like artistic kind of outputs. What does it mean to be? Um, what does culture mean to be in our digital society, and how do we kind of what is our relationship to these digital societies that we're kind of erecting or building or kind of existing in? And so I think about culture in that aspect, and everything that we are is culture. However, some of y'all in Web3 ain't got culture, but that's here nor there. Um, yeah, we got we gotta address it, y'all only use salt and pepper. Like,
We need
first
to
of all,
Web3 has a culture problem. Like, there is a
period.
cultural like, dog, it's true though, cuz like, I'm sorry now. I didn't even mean to cut you off. I just like, I was thinking
No,
about
you
that this
go.
morning. I was brushing my teeth and I was just like, Web3 got a culture problem, dog. Like, how you going to say it's for the culture and you don't even know what culture is? It's just like, that's mad confusing. Like,
It's I always tell people crypto is culture. If you again go to the underneath the surface of all the shit that's happening in the space, you'll find culture. Like, I'm not talking about the Bitcoin maxis. I'm talking about the Skrillas. I'm talking about the Connie Digitals. I'm talking about like the fake rares and like these cats. Like, that is culture. Their ideology, the language, the kind of things that they have to say about kind of the space, their perspective on it, like how they exist here is culture. The technological aspect of those particular communities, and I will call them communities, it's cultural. However, again, we have the surface level thing that we often only see because we don't know that there's something underneath the surface of this thing we call a digital ocean. And there's culture there. There's always been culture here, but we've kind of allowed kind of this weird kind of surface level thing to platform people who don't have culture, who don't exist here. And they constantly call people with culture like the woke mob or the angry mob, and like these are people who have been heavily platformed in the space. And so there is culture here. It's just often hard to see and often hard to kind of observe that if you only kind of live on a Twitter space, or you only live on in a certain Discord. No shade of the Discord. I was in Discord 5 seconds ago. Um, but there is a culture, and there's a vested kind of interest in preserving that culture. And it's been even more challenging, more than ever, to preserve that culture amongst kind of the kind of huge push to kind of platform people who don't have that shit. Like, these are people getting all the damn money. They're getting hundreds of millions of dollars. They're doing all these things, but they don't have culture. They don't have a perspective. They don't have a POV. Their POV is get crypto bros money. That's it. Win Lambo. That's not culture, bro. So yeah.
yeah, I feel like we could have an entire conversation around the topic of culture, because too, because there's like subcultures, and I feel like there's like
Mhm.
pop culture, which I feel like is that's what sometimes people are striving for, is like
Yeah.
popular culture. But my homie, like, tech culture is not like the popular culture. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I had tweeted today that in 2024 I'm predicting more collaborative and equitable, or more equitable collaborations between tech builders and creators and artists, because there's like just potential for so much positive synergy to happen, but because there are these really cool tools and powerful tools being built, but nobody gives a shit because they're hard to use and the internet is or the website is confusing. So
Mhm. Mhm.
like
Keyword website confusing.
bruh, so work with a web designer and like a creative director to like help get anyways, I'm available. I can send y'all my consulting fees if you want to talk further.
Holler,
To
pay my friends.
you know what I'm saying? But like,
Hashtag pay my friends.
oh man. Okay, Natalie, I got one more. Well, I guess it's two questions in one.
Okay.
To wrap it up here. How do you define legacy, and what do you want your legacy to be?
That's a loaded question for me. Um, I'll answer the latter and we can work backwards. For me, I think I have established my legacy in the space and I'll continue to do so, but I've literally propped up like so many wild projects in the space. Like Metaverse Music Festival was at in that time there wasn't anything necessarily like that, probably except for the Whip meetup. Shout out to the homies, and we galvanized like thousands and thousands and thousands of people across like the metaverse, like the real metaverse, not the Sanzar crap. But like we galvanized, we broke Crypto Voxel's server, which is now called Voxels. We broke Decentraland, and my legacy, and especially in respect to that project, we brought a lot of artists in and we platformed them to like the ninth degree. We brought a lot of communities in at that time. Everybody in that space, including like the OG Bitcoin guys. Shout out to the homie Skrilla. We I don't think people understand kind of the magnitude of that project. It also took a lot of wind out of my sails on the back end, but that's the story for another day. But my legacy is inherently tied to like that particular project and what we're able to like do at that time, and the technology low key was not there, but we made it work. And the people that were, whether it's Musashi or like homie Lindsay with an E or like Skrilla, Connie Digital, like all these cats from all over the place at that time, in Web3 music or crypto music as I like to call it. Came together like Voltron, and like we haven't been able to like replicate something of that nature to this day. And so like my legacy will forever be cemented on the blockchain because of that, so that project. NFTs.tips, regardless of like what happened with that project and me like literally burning down the house in a 2-3 hour like clubhouse room, I will forever like respect Black Dave and Kaz Vegas and BitBuzz and all these cats that galvanize around NFTs.tips and the tens of thousands of artists and devs and community builders and all the peoples and that we're able to kind of platform and push out there into the world. And many of them are for a long time were doing extremely well. And so and these are not just artists in the States, we're from South Korea and like Nigeria and like all over the place. So I'm super proud of the work that we were able to do in that time, and the photography and film and like all these niches that people readily had ignored were able to come into fruition. So nobody can ever knock me or Black Dave or like any of these people, because our legacy in terms of like that room on Clubhouse, that small room with a ragtag group of people, nobody can ever knock me or us for the work that we did. And the 10th, that club I think was like 60,000 people by the time we like burnt that shit down. And so like I will forever kind of hallmark that. And there's other things that I've done in this space in terms of like DAOs and building up like the community frameworks of Seed Club and Protein and all these, and these are like prominent DAOs in their heydays. And so like, nobody can ever knock me for that or the things that I've done. And so like I feel like I've cemented my legacy. But moving forward, I hope to kind of erect some of these funding structure so that we can no longer be in a space where we're powerless or begging or groveling for money from these protocols and chains. And so we're able to build like multi-billion-dollar funds to support arts and creatives. And it's not an investment fund. Like reparations were due like 500 years ago, bro. Like you gotta, it's time to pay up. And like I've done a lot of shit in this space, and so it's time to get my bread so that I can support people in a real fucking way, and support artists and build the things that I wanted to build that I haven't had the capital to do so. And I in that respect to my legacy, I'm not asking you for investment capital, bro. Like, give me the bread. We built up mad protocols and chains in that tips room, and so people, it's time to pay up. You know, everybody's got to get their due, and so I think my legacy is about archiving. I'll land here and say this. I was reading on the timeline the other day and I saw this book about NFT history. And like nothing in this book is about that time on Clubhouse and how much work was done and how much energy people put out and how many artists actually came out of that space. And it actually kind of made me a little bit sad in the second, but I also realized the power and time and access we have at this very moment that's important to tell our stories. That's why I love what you're doing here at Culture Shift. It's important to kind of archive those stories. It's important to interrogate that period in time. And so my legacy will be archiving those stories. My legacy will be propping up folks like you and propping up other homies to make sure that we can continue to do that work. It's not just me, it's all of us that got to do that shit, that are able and have access and the tools and want to do that. And so I hope to kind of erect those things. But the funding structures is something that I've kind of been mulling about for like a minute. And so that when I build this multi-billion-dollar public goods funding platform for creatives and impact projects, that's my legacy. That's the linchpin for me. And so we'll see. So I've
Boom.
done the work. My legacy here, whether you want to recognize it or not, is here nor there. I don't need validation, but I put in the work. I got the stripes.
Facts. No, that is facts, and we recognize it. We see you out here, Natalie, putting in the work, and we recognize it. We honor you. We appreciate you, and yo, it's so true. Like honestly, probably everybody who's in this Twitter Spaces room right now has Natalie has helped you in some way, shape, or form. Whether it was getting guidance from her voice, listening it into Clubhouse, or now we're all on Twitter Spaces here, or you literally DMing her and getting your questions answered because this guy right here. And so I am forever grateful for you and your contribution to this space. And whoever wrote that book, we need to maybe do a little rewrite or something, because like that's that. I did see that on the timeline, and I was actually curious. I was
Yeah.
like, huh, interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not knocking those artists who are there. Like a lot of them did kind of platform and like build up the space. However, 2021, 2022 was we led the bull run. Like that whole entire room and like adjacent kind of communities literally are making OpenSea like damn near $1 billion a month. And so like I like how we don't get included, and I don't need validation. I've never been that person, but I'm also like, if we're talking about archiving history, if we're talking about legacy, if we're talking about making sure that Black and Brown folks and other folks who contributed to the current kind of energy that exists in this space, you can't talk about the history of NFTs without talking about 2021 to 2022. Like,
Absolutely not.
period.
That's
And
what
so,
that's what started. That's what kicked off. Like 2021. That year was a rodeo. Like we was out here, boy. So like, and I don't know what all is included in that book by any means, but
yeah.
I do know who has been here building the foundation from
Mhm.
the very beginning, and so
Yeah.
um to me that's another form of erasure, which we're trying to get away
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
So like I think we can, well, and not even to knock anybody, it's just like it's it's the wild wild west right now. So like if we don't establish these principles and like
Hmm.
these ways of moving to be like, no, that's actually that's not cool. Actually this happened. We got to fact check a little bit. Like if we're not setting the tone in that, then it's just going to be like a free for all. So we need to start establishing some principles here in Web3 and
Principalities.
exactly, it's about the principality of things sometimes, you know? Like goodness. All right, y'all. Thank you everybody who joined in. We got a bumping room in here on the Twitter Spaces. I'm not sure about who joined for the live stream. I can't see all that. I need a bigger screen. We'll get there in time. But Natalie, yo, you are a blessing. Just thank you so much for being you, for showing up and showing out and keeping it funky at all times. The funkiest of all. Just keeping it 100. Appreciate you so much.
Always.
And
It's mutual.
I receive that. Thank y'all again for tuning in, and we will catch y'all on the next episode. Stay hydrated, stay blessed, and have a good weekend, y'all. Shoot, it's Friday. Go ahead, go outside, touch some grass. All right, I'm ending the Twitter Spaces. About to end the live stream. Peace. Y'all have a good one.